Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to multiply and divide rational numbers in real life situations. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to multiply and divide fractions and decimals. Remember, those are types of rational numbers in those real life scenarios. So let's go ahead and get out your binder, turn to the math section, and get ready to take some notes. So we're going to do this the same way we did with the adding and subtracting rationals in real life. We'll go through these examples. We're going to look at what we know, what we need to know, make a plan, and then come up with a solution. So we're going to do this to get ready for that constructive response today. So we're going to look at just two word problems, and then I'll give you some opportunities for some extra work. I'll make sure that you have time to do that constructive response. So this says multiplying and dividing rationals in real life. You're given a word problem. It says Mrs. Neville is baking 5 batches of cookies. Remember, as we go through a word problem, we want to underline anything that's important. So Mrs. Neville is baking 5 batches. She will need 2.5 cups of flour for each batch of cookies. So 2.5 cups for each. Each is an important word. If she begins with a 20-cup bag of flour, what is the resulting change in the amount of flour in the bag? So now that you know how these little charts work, I want you to go ahead and put everything that you know from the word problem into this box here that says I know. Okay, so you should have just gone through, pause the video, and then put in all the things that you know. You know that there are 20 cups of flour. Sorry, I'd rather have that typed than my handwriting. And then the next thing you know is that there are 2.5 cups per batch. Then we also know that she's baking 5 batches of cookies. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But you could also have written that in the I know category. So let's look at what we need to know. So the need to know is always going to be that last sentence. So it's asking, what is the resulting change in the amount of flour in the bag? So we need to know the change in the amount of flour in the bag. So just to unpack this in a little more simple language, she has a bunch of flour. She's using 2.5 cups for all these batches. So every batch gets 2.5 cups, 2.5 cups, 2.5 cups. So she's taking flour out of the bag. What we want to find out is how much got put out of the bag or used from the bag. So when we make a plan, the first thing we need to know, if she's using 2.5 cups of flour for each batch and there are 5 batches, we want to use that 2.5 and that 5. And now we need to decide what's the operation we're going to do between those. Since it says each batch, that's a clue that we're going to multiply. So each is a clue for multiplication. You can look back in your notes for the math vocabulary section, and you should know that each means multiply. So if each batch of 5 has 2.5 cups of flour, we want to go ahead and multiply 2.5 times 5. I want you to look back in your notes and remember the process for multiplying fractions, especially whenever one of them is a mixed number. Go ahead and pause the video, practice that, and then press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so you should have started out by turning this mixed number into an improper fraction. You do that by multiplying and then adding. So you go 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5 over 2. You keep what's on the bottom, times 5. And we want to just remember that every number that's just written as a regular number always has an invisible 1 underneath of it. Every number has an invisible 1 underneath. So if it's just regular 5, that's the same thing as 5 over 1. That's important to remember because what we're going to do next is multiply 5 times 5 straight across. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then we want to multiply 2 times 1. So anything times 1 is just itself. So we just do 2 times 1, so we get 25 over 2. That's the same thing as 12 and 1/2. Since that's what we lost from the bag, that represents a negative. That's what we took out. So our final answer could be negative 12.5. You could also write that as negative 12.5. So that could be your final answer, but if you wanted to expand your solution, you could bring back in that 20. And you could say there were 20 cups to start with in the bag. We took out 12.5, so now we have 7.5 left. This is expanding on your solution, but it's not what the question is asking for. So as long as you make sure that your final answer is negative 12.5, because that was what the question was asking. We want to know the change in the amount of flour in the bag, not how much flour was left. So as long as you answer this part of the question, you can also add in the extra information. Can't hurt to add more. So as we go through these problems, we're going to think through the situation and then follow the rules for integer operations. Sometimes as we go through these, it might be helpful to draw a number line or a model. So it might be helpful to do that for you. So keep that in mind for this next problem. So this second word problem says, Jody had 6 1/4 pounds of candy to use to make Valentine goodie bags for her classmates. Go ahead and pause here and go through, and I want you to underline any important information from that first sentence. Okay, so you should have just paused and you should have underlined that Jody has 6 1/4 pounds of candy. That's what she has. Let's read the next sentence. It says, if she puts 3/8 of a pound, so she's putting 3/8 of a pound in each goodie bag, how many Valentine's bags can she make? So take a second to write down what we know, pause the video, and then press play to check. So you should have written down that she You know that she has 6 1/4 pounds in total, and you abbreviate pounds by writing LBS. LBS is the same thing as pounds. And she's putting 3/8 of a pound in each bag. And the last part of the question, what we need to know is always in that last part of the question. How many Valentine's bags can she make? So just how many goodie bags can she make? So for this example, I do want to use a model. So I do want to show you what I'm looking at with a model for this one. You can do this on your own, or you can just follow along with me for now. So to figure out what operation we're going to use to do this problem, I just want to show you this is what the problem is asking you. You have a lot of candy. She has 6 1/4 pounds. She has a lot. She's going to split up this total amount here of candy equally between these goodie bags. She wants to just put 3/8 of a pound in each bag. So we see the word each again, but think about the situation here. She's taking the candy and she's going to split it up between goodie bags. She's going to evenly split up between the goodie bags by the pound. Think about what operation that is. What did I just do? When I was taking the big total and splitting it up, dividing it, I was dividing. So what you're going to do is take the total, 6 1/4, divided by the 3/8. So we are dividing, so we're going to take the total divided by the pounds per bag. Go ahead and take a look back at your rules for dividing fractions, and then pause the video to try it yourself, and then press play when you're ready to check. So by now you should have tried this whole problem by yourself. So the first step in dividing or multiplying fractions is to make sure they're both regular top and bottom, numerator, denominator, no mixed number fractions. We want them just to be improper if they're mixed numbers. So we'll start by multiplying 4 times 6 and then add what's on top. So you have 25 over 4. So you have 25 over 4 divided by 3/8. But you should remember from that lesson that we don't ever divide fractions. We never ever divide fractions. Instead, we follow the keep, change, flip. We don't divide fractions. We multiply by their reciprocal, which means their flipped fraction. So we'll keep, change, flip. We'll keep the 25/4. We will change the divide to a times. I'm going to use the dot for that. And then we'll flip 3/8 to its reciprocal, 8/3. When they're being multiplied, we just multiply straight across. So 25 times 8, we can think about like quarters, so we don't need a calculator. If I have 4 quarters, I have $1. If I have 8 quarters, I have $2. So I can have 200 over 4 times 3, which is 12. And then we don't want to leave our answer improper. We want to reduce it or simplify it back into a mixed number. So we need to think about how many times 12 goes into 200. I know that 12 goes in at least 12 times because 12 times 12 is 144. But I also know that it can go in even more. So I'm just going to keep adding 12s to that. And I'm going to see that it goes in 16 whole times with 8 remaining. So 8/12. And I can simplify that even further because 8 and 12 are both divisible by 2 and 4. So I'm going to just go ahead and divide by 4 by both of them just because I want to simplify this without doing any extra steps. So my final answer would be 16 2/3. But the question was how many full goodie bags could I make? So I can make 16 2/3 of a goodie bag. So I can make 16 full goodie bags. So always keep in mind what's the context of your question. So for the next section, I'm just going to let you practice these by yourself. If you want to pause the video and copy these down or look in your notes, you can practice these by yourself. This is just extra practice to get you ready for multiplying and dividing math in real life, but I want to give you time to do the constructive response. So this is what the constructive response will look like. You're multiplying and dividing rationals in real life. It says the student council sells snacks at the fall carnival to raise money. Use the menu below to answer the following question. So this is the menu over here. And what you're going to do is you are going to go through and you are going to think of yourself like you're a member of the student council and you're trying to fundraise for this fall festival. So these are the prices of each item at the festival or the carnival. When you answer these questions, please make sure that you are explaining your reasoning, showing your work when you can, and answering in complete sentences. That's really, really important to me. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it to the end of this video, please put which color Sour Patch Kid is the best in the comments. Today, we went over multiplying and dividing rational numbers in real life. So those are fractions and decimals. And we looked at some word problems. So now you should be able to look at other word problems or real life examples and multiply and divide fractions and decimals in those situations. So now I want you to go back to the calendar, complete any other assignments you have left for the day, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.